The night was cold, the air thick with fear. Footsteps echoed in the distance, growing louder with every second. They were coming. There was no time to think, only time to run. But where could they go? How far could they get before it was too late? Stay with me till the end. This story is one you won't forget. The night air was thick with tension, every breath laced with fear. The city streets, usually alive with distant chatter and flashing lights, were eerily silent, too silent. Only the sound of hurried footsteps filled the emptiness, quick and desperate, like a heartbeat racing out of control. They didn't dare look back. They didn't need to. The feeling of being chased clung to them like a shadow, pressing down, tightening its grip with every step. Every alley they passed felt like a dead end, every streetlight a spotlight exposing their presence. They had to keep moving. Stopping wasn't an option. A cold gust of wind bit at their skin, but it was nothing compared to the fear burning inside them. Their minds raced, calculating the best way out. The roads were being blocked, escape routes were disappearing. They had planned for this moment, yet nothing felt certain anymore. A siren wailed in the distance, not close yet, but getting there. Panic clawed at their chests, making it harder to breathe. They ducked into a narrow passage between two crumbling buildings, pressing their backs against the cold brick. In the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, one of them finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "We need to act fast before they catch up to us." The words sent a chill down their spine, not just because they were true, but because they both knew. There was no second chance. If they failed now, there was no coming back. The city felt smaller, closing in on them. They had to think, move, escape, before it was too late. Time was slipping through their fingers like sand in a storm. Every breath felt stolen, every step a gamble. The city, once familiar, had turned into a maze of danger. Streets that once felt safe were now traps, lined with flashing lights and watchful eyes. They ran, their footsteps barely audible over the pounding in their chests. Their lungs burned, but stopping wasn't an option. The search was tightening, closing in like an invisible net. Any hesitation, any wrong move, and they'd be caught. Ahead, a bridge loomed in the darkness. Beneath it, the river roared, black and wild. The roads above were crawling with figures, scanning every corner, blocking every exit. One of them hesitated. "Do we have another way?" The question hung in the air, but the answer was clear. The river was their only shot. It was dangerous, freezing, unpredictable, but it was better than what waited for them if they stayed. With a deep breath, they moved. Climbing the rusted railing, they glanced down at the swirling water below. It looked endless, bottomless. Fear gripped them, but there was no time for it. A voice, steady but urgent, whispered in the night, "Jump!" For a split second, everything paused, the sirens, the fear, the chase. Then they leaped, cold, crushing, darkness. The river swallowed them whole. The moment they hit the water, everything vanished. Sound, light, even the air in their lungs. The freezing river wrapped around them like chains, dragging them down into an abyss of darkness. Panic surged through their veins, their instincts screamed at them to fight. But the water was relentless, pulling them deeper. Which way was up? Where was the surface? Their limbs thrashed, desperate to break free. The current was stronger than they expected, twisting them, shoving them against unseen rocks beneath the surface. Pain shot through their bodies, but there was no time to think about it. If they didn't move now, they wouldn't move ever again. Then, a flicker of light above. The moon, distorted through the water. A target, a way out. With everything they had left, they kicked upward. Their muscles ached, lungs screamed for oxygen, but they pushed through. A few more seconds, just a little more. They broke through, gasping for air, their chests heaved as they fought to stay afloat. The river, wild and unforgiving, shoved them forward, forcing them downstream. But they weren't alone. Distant voices, flashlights scanning the riverbanks. They were still being hunted. No time to rest, no time to stop. With heavy strokes they swam, letting the current carry them further from danger. The city lights faded behind them, swallowed by the darkness of the night. But safety was still far away, and they had no idea what waited for them ahead. The river spat them out onto the muddy shore, their bodies shaking from the cold. Every muscle ached, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. But they were alive. That was all that mattered. The world around them was eerily quiet. No sirens, no voices, just the distant hum of the river and the rustling of the wind through the trees. Had they lost them? Or was this just the calm before the next storm? They didn't wait to find out. Through the darkness they moved, stumbling, exhausted but determined. A single thought pushed them forward, the safe house. It wasn't far. If they could just get there, they'd have a moment to think, to plan their next move. The forest swallowed them, thick branches clawing at their clothes as they navigated the uneven ground. Every sound, every snapped twig, every rustle in the bushes felt like a warning. Then finally it appeared, a small worn-down cabin, barely visible in the moonlight. Relief hit them like a wave, but they didn't let their guard down. One of them reached for the door, hand shaking. It creaked open, revealing the dimly lit space inside. The air smelled of dust and old wood, the fireplace barely flickering with life. But there was something else, someone else. A shadow moved in the corner, their breath caught in their throats. Then, a whisper. "You made it." A familiar voice, a friend. They weren't alone. But whether that was a good thing or not, they weren't sure yet. The warmth of the cabin barely touched their frozen skin, but it didn't matter. They had made it. For the first time in what felt like hours, they could finally breathe. The figure in the corner stepped closer, their face emerging from the shadows. Tired eyes met theirs, filled with the same fear, the same urgency. "You were followed," they said, voice low but certain. Their hearts stopped. "No, we lost them," one of them whispered, more to convince themselves than anyone else. A sharp shake of the head. "They're out there, watching. They won't stop." A deep silence fell over the room. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, carrying whispers of danger. They had run, fought, escaped, but it wasn't over. A noise, faint but distinct. A rustling just beyond the cabin walls. Every muscle tensed. Their breath caught in their throats. Then, a knock at the door. Slow, deliberate. Their eyes darted to each other, panic surging through their veins. It was too late. They had caught up.